Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace. This is a Spawn Daily episode. We're back to the regular series
Yay!
for one issue, anyway. Joined once again by Blake Whitlow. Blake is the author of the reading order that we're using to do this insane reading order that we're planning this year to try to read all the issues of at least the regular Spawn series and to be able to catch up on the new stuff, the Spawn Connected Universe stuff that McFarlane and his team are putting out. King Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn, The Scorched. So that's what we're doing here. So yeah, it's nice to get back to the regular issues of the regular series. And as I've said before, when we cover the tangential stuff, which we did, we covered a bunch of series like Curse of Spawn, like 3 different arcs. We did Cygor, which, by the way, you guys love Cygor. Like Blake and I talked about it, how you could even sort of take Cygor out of those issues and just have it be like a straight horror anthology series, and it wouldn't really change it that much. But you guys don't care. You love Cygor. Like, that has like 4 times as many downloads as the regular issues. So you guys love Cygor. You know what, we do too. He's a cool character. And he will show up again, which is the whole reason that we covered it. So yeah, good times. Anyway, let's dive into issue number 62, because it's more than just tying in with kind of the origin of Angela and her fight against the Argus and this new character that we saw show up, who's sort of mysterious. And the other thing that we get, I'm going to just move this up just a little bit. The other thing that we get a return to, I didn't realize how much I'd missed the Capullo art. I did mention that Dwayne Turner's art it's similar to what McFarlane does, which is similar to what Capullo does, but there's a little bit of an aesthetic difference. I think Greg's art is a little more lighthearted in a way, almost cartoonish or cartoony. So it's, again, nice to get back to the regular series, nice to get back to some Capullo art. The other thing that I want to point out is this really interesting change in design inside the front cover. It's still very 90s, but I feel like part of it probably has to do with the fact that, this was at the time when digital color was becoming a thing, and, computers were becoming a thing to do graphic design and whatnot. And so I feel like that's part of the reason that you see this huge change. I mean, it is a very big change from last issue to this issue in terms of what you see inside the front cover, the way the text is all laid out and everything.
It's actually promotion. It's all about that marketing, baby. This is how Spawn looks in the 1997 movie. Yeah, the live action movie.
Yep.
Jessica Priest and that whole arc, the A7 or A6 organization that's on the inside of the cover, the actor that we talked about on the cover for the first issue of her arc, the Heat 16, all of that kind of comes from the existence of that movie, because around this time period, the movie came out. And so they're trying to incorporate elements of that into the comic book. And this is just like one visual aesthetic that were thrown up on the inside of the page that didn't like deter from the story itself.
Yeah, June 1997 is the date of this issue, so that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Brent Ash has a lot to do with this new visual look for inside the front cover. And I'll go ahead and read the recap, because again, it's been a while since we've actually done a regular Spawn.
We took a little break
issue. Yeah. So if you recall, last time Spawn went and kicked the crap out of the Violator, like literally killed him, blew him apart, and then took his skull as a trophy, returned Cyan to her parents, had a long talk with Granny Blake, and while that talk calmed him down, it also confused Spawn about what he's supposed to be doing, the choices he's making, that sort of thing. And then, yeah, Spawn goes back to his alley. He sits down, hallucinates the skull talking to him, and then that skull sort of morphs back into the clown, gets the information about, hey, Jason Wynn didn't actually send Chapel to kill you. It was actually somebody else, which that led into the Jessica Priest 3-issue story arc that we did. And also we learned that Jason Wynn confirmed that Cygor's remains were on the way to the testing facility, and he's ordered the it's not necessarily the death, but I don't want to say he's put a hit out on Terry Fitzgerald, but but now that the federal agents that were sort of lurking around the Fitzgerald family because of Cyan's kidnapping, now that they've all gone, it's kind of open season on Terry Fitzgerald once again, although we don't know exactly what that means. Here we're told that he orders the disappearance of Terry Fitzgerald. That's what the recap says. So take that for what you will.
Whenever you want someone disappeared, it's never a good thing.
No.
They typically don't live through being disappeared.
Yeah, very, very true. So,
or you end like Forsberg did.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of on that note, when the series starts off, we're told about this guy who drowned in his own blood. He had worked for years for the U.S. Diplomatic Corps. Victor Kozlov was his name, and he kind of wanted to get out of the game, and Jason Wynn wasn't having it. You know, Victor, he tried to distance himself from the people that he was able to get information from. So he basically was trying to reduce his value to Jason Wynn. And so Jason Wynn was like, well, now that you're of no use to me, I'll just have you killed. We're told his body was never found, and it was explained away as this deep cover mole that wanted out of the game. And so they, quote unquote, you know, retired him or spirited him home. And by home, I mean, you know, put two in the back of his head and buried him in a, you know, deep hole. So once again, reminded what a scumbag Jason Wynn is. And not only is he head of the CIA, it's the first time in a while we're reminded that he's also head of the world's clandestine and most powerful international intelligence bureau, the United States Security Group, which hasn't been mentioned in a while. So as Wynn is sleeping, Spawn decides to pay him a visit, gives him the barrel of a gun in the mouth, and starts threatening him. And of course, here comes Jason Wynn. Who are you? Still doesn't know that he's Al Simmons. And Spawn doesn't, again, I'm not sure why. I mean, Terry and Wanda and Cyan are already a target, so I'm not sure why Al doesn't just come clean. But he hints around at it. Maybe, he'll get some perverse pleasure at the moment that Jason Wynn finally realizes who it is, but who he is. But another thing that he says is that he's back for revenge. It's like, I don't have, you know, anything else. I've lost everything. But I still know what's important. Revenge is what's important. Like, really? That's where you go now? I don't think this is what Grandma Blake was talking about when she, you know, sat you down last issue or what have you. But Wynn has a little bit of a surprise for Spawn, because it does seem like Al's finally ready to take this guy out. And that's when Jason Wynn says, well, I know how much Wanda and Terry and Cyan mean to you. And there are orders in place that if I'm killed, something happens to me, they're all going to be taken out as well. So that gives Al pause, because he knows Jason Wynn doesn't bluff. And so he basically chokes him and says, if anything ever happens to them, you know, you won't live, you know, to see the end of the day, which does make sense. I mean, if that's the only leverage that Jason Wynn has over Spawn, then yeah, at any moment, the minute that they're no longer alive, then yeah, I could see Al taking out Jason Wynn. So Spawn does something interesting here. He tells Jason Wynn, I'll be in your office tomorrow at midnight. You know, have as much security there as you want. It won't matter. You know, I'm going to show you that I can get to you anytime, anywhere, which I like that. Again, it's threatening. He's not necessarily saying he's going to take Wynn out, because again, Wynn's got the leverage of the Fitzgerald family. But I love that idea, you know, and Wynn even says, oh, if we know where you'll be, when you'll be, we'll kill you. And Spawn's like, no, you won't. Because I'm already dead. You can't kill what's already dead.
Such a huge power play. Like,
yeah.
Throw everything you have at me, I'll still get to you. And he's going to find this out apparently tomorrow at midnight. So now Jason's going to be on the defensive, try and bring everything that he's got out, all of his shiny toys. Like, all right, I know where he's going to be and when he's going to be there, so I can prepare.
Yeah,
But he doesn't fully know what Spawn is, so there's no way he could prepare.
it's a fantastic move from Al Simmons
Hmm.
here because he's like, okay, maybe you do have me right now, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to take you out until I can make sure Terry and Wanda and Cyan are safe. But if by making this play, he knows Win is literally going to have, he's going to pull out all the stops.
Hmm.
So in a way, it's like I'm going to get Win's playbook and know what he, if his back was against the wall, what are his resources.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fantastic move from Al. Meanwhile, speaking of the Fitzgerald family, they're visiting some neighbors. Their kids are playing together, and Terry gets some not welcome news, but in my mind, not surprising news. Basically, the other neighbors in the neighborhood want them gone. And his friend tells him, we're not necessarily a part of it, and it's why we're being shunned because we're not joining in. But they've got some lawyers, and they say that based on the shootout that happened way back in issue number 23, I think it was.
I believe it
Uh,
was 23, 23,
yeah,
24.
actually 19. I'm sorry, 19 was the shootout, and then 23 was the kidnapping. So based on those events, yeah, I was like, oh, there's an editor's note right here if I could just read. Yeah, so, but anyway, based on those things happening, and based on the fact that Terry works for the CIA, the neighborhood doesn't feel safe. So I can kind of see both sides, but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I think this was before the days of HOAs, or at least widespread HOAs. So I don't know that you can just sue somebody to get rid of their fan. Like, sorry, you have to move because you're dangerous. But I get it. I totally get where the neighborhood's coming from. So obviously, another wrinkle for Al that he's going to have to put up with. So meanwhile, we see Angela appear on Earth again. This is going back to finally we're at the point where we're tying in with Curse of Spawn number 10. We see her showing up there, a little bit different than the events as they unfolded in that issue where she showed up in an alley and there was a couple of guys there talking about her, and she was like, "Oh, look at these bozos! I must be on Earth." Here she kind of shows up, overlooking the city in a way, senses that she's on Earth, and seeks out Al Simmons, who is also struck by some sort of bolt from the blue, with the symbiote kind of recognizing danger at the last minute, but it's already too late. And then we're told he everything goes black. He basically got knocked out. And when he comes to, look who's there, his favorite avenging angel, Angela. And he's like, "Angela, what's this about?" And Angela's like, "Well, I was hoping you could tell me. Did you summon me here? I don't know what's going on. I was halfway across the galaxy a few minutes ago. Now I'm here in your territory." And Spawn's like, "You think I summoned you? Why would I do that? I'm not going to waste my energy on you. You're the angel. You're the one that knows about the whole battle between heaven and hell. So, if somebody's got answers, it should be you." And she's like, "Okay, I get it. Sarcasm, whatever." And she's like, "Well, I know there's a breach in what does she call it? The Eternal Triumvirate. A cybernetic soul eater called the Argus is the catalyst in conjunction with Limbo." And Al's like, "Could you
What?
cut out the mumbo jumbo? I already have a headache." Like, again, getting back to what we were saying about the magic babble in the issues of Curse of Spawn. Again, Angela's the one that's versed on this stuff, which is interesting because Al does say, "Yeah, you're the one that knows about this stuff." And then when she tells him about it, he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty funny. So she does try to explain it to him. He's like, "Okay, think of it as universal glue that holds the universe together, and it's all falling apart." And our and again, this is similar to what she said in issue 10 of Curse of Spawn. It's like, us running into each other can't be a coincidence. It's got to be more than that. And Spawn's like, "Well, yeah, obviously it's not a coincidence." And she says, "Okay, well then you need to help me. We need to work together." And as she says that, all of a sudden we see more of that blue light that she sort of appeared in, and she's whisked away. And Al feels it too, this burning white hot light. But he doesn't disappear. but it does affect him, and he feels nauseated, and he goes staggering off into the night. There's a ringing in his ears. He feels really strange. What's this feeling I have? Oh yeah, I remember when I was alive and I felt like this. It was because I was drunk. So is he drunk on power? Is it different power than what he's used to? Is he charged up, or is he just intoxicated in some other way? Or yeah, we're just not really sure. But what we do know is he's still Spawn, and he's still going to fight for the little guy, because as he's kind of staggering around, he comes across this homeless guy being mugged, and takes out the two muggers. And as the homeless guy is thanking him, and Al's trying to sort of excuse himself and get away, he heads back to the more familiar alleys, where he runs into a friend. As he's sitting on his throne, the friend turns around and says, "Christ almighty, Al, your face." And on the final page, we see that Al Simmons looks human again.
Da-da.
What? What wild, crazy business is this? So, I mean, the implication, obviously, that energy, whatever it was, healed him, but for what reason and why? And so huge cliffhanger ending, really fantastic. Makes me want to immediately read Spawn 64, but again, before we get to that, we got to go back and finish the Angela arc. So next episode, we'll be talking about issue 11, and then of Curse of Spawn, and then we'll get back to talking about this. So yeah, this was a really fun issue. The I sort of felt like the Angela interlude, I'll call it, wasn't really necessary, because we already saw it in Curse of Spawn number 10. But then when I saw this, I was like, well, if that has something to do with him showing up as human again, basically, then, I don't mind. But the thing is, I mean, his face is back, but it's not like he's all the way back. He's still blind, or blind. He's still bald, and he still has the green glowing eyes. So,
and his symbiote is still attached to him too.
His symbiote is still attached to him. But you wonder, I mean, we've seen him peel that symbiote off before. Mm-hmm. Put on some sunglasses.
This is true. Someone also, I believe a homeless guy at one point wore part of his symbiote, and then it tried to kill him.
Yep. Yeah. So is he going to, be like, all right, here's my chance to go see Wanda?
Is he alive? Is he dead? Who knows?
You would hope that cooler heads would prevail, and he wouldn't do that, because, yeah, dude, you're still dead, and she's married to somebody else now.
Like, if he shows up on Wanda's doorstep looking like this, looking like Al Simmons, like, that's been one of the biggest roadblocks for him, is he looks like a dead man. Like, how could he go see his 5-year ex-wife, looking like that, saying, yes, I'm Al, I'm your husband, I love you, we went here and did this together, remember? Like, she's just going to be horrified. Like, God, what the hell?
Yeah, your face looks like chewed bubble gum. Why would I believe it's you?
Looks like Al Simmons. So this could change the relationships of everybody that Spawn has interacted with up to this point, If he can actually, at the same time,
he's risking a lot.
Yeah.
Or is he actually, when we think about it? I mean, could be risking his, reestablishing his relationship with Terry, but in the face of reuniting with Wanda, does that matter? And then, clearly, like you said, he can't be in the costume. He can't have his symbiote anywhere near him, because if at any point Wanda sees anything that symbiote-like, she's immediately going to realize, hey, he's Spawn. I mean, Wanda's not dumb. I almost think she should have put it together before now that Al and Spawn are one and the same. Although, Terry didn't put it together either until he basically had some of Al's power in him and got the visions or whatnot. So, yeah, it's a very interesting turn of events. And I mean, this is just a great issue for moments. I mean, this is a fantastic cliffhanger to end on. And like we said, the other fantastic moment is just Spawn going to total power play on Jason Wynn, like ready to take him out. Wynn's like, oh, hold on. I got something. I got a little bit of leverage on you. And Spawn kind of, in a way, calls his bluff by saying, all right, I'm going to be here at this time. See if you can stop me. So,
Be
and
ready for me.
does that change now that he looks like Al? Is he going to take that risk?
Does his entire life change from this point on?
Yeah.
Like, does he even care? I mean, he definitely cares. He's Al Simmons. He wants revenge on Jason, but still, like,
yeah. Here's a question for you. You know, we just talked about changing the inside look and design because of the movie. Do you think that the movie coming out had anything to do with them? Hey, let's make him look like a bald black guy. I mean, it doesn't necessarily look like what Michael J. White necessarily, but making him,
know.
Yeah.
There isn't a whole lot that I can remember off the top of my head because I'm kind of remembering as I'm reading through with you.
Yeah.
But from my memory, I don't recall there being a whole lot of direct movie tie-ins. It really just seemed like a lot of the marketing and a lot of the side series kind of got the heavy dosage of, you know, we're going to inject story elements from the movie via this arc in a side series to Spawn. They pretty much kept the integrity of the main comic series intact, aside from like one or two instances. For example, introducing Jessica Priest. But there's practical reasons for introducing Jessica instead of staying with Chapel, because Todd has more control over a character that he invented versus having to, you know, work with Chapel's creator and getting licenses to borrow him. So it makes sense why Jessica Priest exists in the context of the story and how that kind of movie tie-in actually affected the story. But aside from that, I don't know. It feels pretty cohesive to me.
Yeah, and I don't think it's wildly out of character or out of left field for Todd to do this, but I also know Todd's a really cagey businessman, so I just wonder, even if it was on a subconscious level. I mean, the thing is, we need to have Todd on, like, I don't know, for an 8-hour episode to ask him all the questions that we want to ask him, which is why I hope to have him on soon before we get too much further. Because, yeah, that would be a question for him, like,
maybe for 200 or 150 or something like that.
Yeah,
big commemorative issue.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would say that I want to ask him about in relationship to the movies, because recently he was talking about how the sales of the comic don't really have anything to do with whether or not the movie gets made or whatever. Now that superhero movies have become billion-dollar properties, it's just more about like global recognition. Because even he was saying that even the number one comic last year, I think was King Spawn #1, and it sold like 500,000 copies or something, somewhere along those lines. Yeah. And he's like, man, to a studio, if 500,000 people go see a movie, that's nothing. That's a complete failure. So it's not about any kind of current circulation. It's about kind of how many people are aware of it. How many people go, oh, I used to collect Spawn, I'll go see the movie. And that number should be in the millions, and that's what the studio is looking for. But to go back and talk about, changing the inside trade dress or doing some other tangential series or whatever that tie more closely into a movie, you remember in 1997, comic book movies weren't billion-dollar properties. So, the context and why he did things then as opposed to why he would do things now in relation to movie marketing or what have you would be very different. I'd love to hear him talk about that a little bit. But
it is very interesting. I didn't actually think of it in that context. I always thought of it as just like, oh, movie, comic, two different stories. Related, yes. Shared elements, yes. But two separate stories. I always just assumed that he was going to have like the creative integrity to keep them separate. But yeah, you're totally right. Like, the movie market and comic industry and everything now is completely different from how it was back then, and the relationship between each other.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Any last thoughts on this issue there, Blake?
That is a killer shot. That is an awesome final page. When I was reading it for the first time, my jaw hung open. Like, oh my gosh, this raises so many questions.
Yeah, I think when I read it just a couple days ago, and I got to the last page, I just I was like, holy shit, wait, what? I didn't see that coming, and yeah, I mean, obviously, I haven't read these issues, before, so it was a nice surprise. But I mean, I still have lived in the world of comics for the last, 40 plus years of my life, and I don't remember hearing about this.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to be still be surprised for an issue that's what 25 years old, I guess.
Yeah.
So fantastic. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Again, we'll get to Spawn 64 in a couple of episodes. Next episode will be Curse of Spawn number 11. So if you want to follow along and know what's coming up next, again, go check out the reading order that Blake put together. There's a link in the show notes, or you can just go and Google Spawn reading order, put in Blake as well, the name Blake, to be sure you get the right one. It's a Google Doc. Blake's been even updating it a little bit as we're going through, adding a little more context about when the tangential series fit in and where they fit in and why they are where they are. So again, we appreciate the support. We appreciate everybody listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.